Hey guys! Tonight we're diving into something a little mythic. Picture this. A notification pops up on your phone at 3:17 a.m., glowing like a tiny sun. The username? @TheRealApollo. The message? Need a co-producer for a cross-millennium music festival. Pays in ambrosia and eternal glory. Interested? Yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink at the screen. Apollo? The god of music, sunlight, prophecy, healing, and apparently late-night event planning? It sounds like spam. You even hover over the block button, but then a little melody hums from your phone's speaker. It's just 3 notes. Clear, golden, vibrating straight into your bones. And you swear the sun outside brightens a notch, even though it's the middle of the night. Okay, you mumble. Sure, why not plan a festival with a literal deity? The reply comes instantly. Excellent. Pack sunglasses. You don't even have time to question logistics before your surroundings melt into a wash of gold. Your bed turns to marble, your pajamas to linen, and your phone, well, that stays the same because apparently Olympus runs on Wi-Fi now. You're standing on a sun-kissed slope above Delphi, Greece. Warm air curls around you, smelling like thyme and hot stone. Below you lies the half-ruined amphitheater carved into the mountain, once the heartbeat of ancient oracles and pilgrim poets. Except tonight, or whatever time it is, you can feel it thrumming again, like the earth is waiting for a sound check. Apollo appears at the edge of the cliff, barefoot, hair glowing like stage lights through a smoke machine. He looks half rock star, half Renaissance painting, and entirely too pleased with himself. "Welcome, mortal co-producer," he says, tossing you a clipboard that materializes midair. "We're calling it Sunstock, one night of divine sound to realign the cosmos." You blink. "Sunstock?" He nods. "Woodstock was too wet. Coachella's dust gives Dionysus migraines. I figured, why not bring music back to its birthplace?" There's logic to that. After all, ancient Greece really was the first civilization to treat music as a science, an art, and a religion all at once. They literally built temples with perfect acoustics, stone amplifiers shaped by math. Historians still argue whether the amphitheater at Epidaurus could genuinely carry a whisper from the stage to the back row. But standing here, you're starting to think it wasn't just architecture. It was worship. Apollo walks ahead, golden lyre slung over his shoulder, humming something that sounds suspiciously like a mix between Mozart and Daft Punk. "You'll handle logistics, permits, lineup, mortal outreach. I'll handle the vibe." You stare at your clipboard. There's a checklist titled Festival to Do, Immortal Version. The first 3 lines read, 1. Secure stage location. Check. 2. Summon promotional wins. 3. Ensure Zeus doesn't find out. Wait, why can't Zeus know? You ask. Apollo grimaces. "Last time I threw a party, we flooded the Nile by accident. He made me run sunlight on double shifts for a century." Right. So, this festival is already skating the edge of divine probation. You follow him down the slope toward the half-built stage. Nymphs in neon safety vests are dragging cables made of starlight across the dirt. A Saturn in a headset yells at a drone camera that keeps trying to film itself. Somewhere nearby, a group of dryads are arguing over whether the lighting rig violates tree rights. "This is chaos," you mutter. "Organized chaos. Artistic entropy," he corrects. You watch as one of the nymphs plugs a glowing cord into the ground. Instantly, a ring of stone pillars flares to life, pulsing with light. It's breathtaking and a little terrifying. So, how are we powering all this, you ask. Apollo shrugs. Solar, obviously. You try not to roll your eyes. Of course. The clipboard buzzes in your hand. A new line appears. 4. Higher mortal security. Avoid Spartans. They unionized. You glance up at Apollo. This thing updates itself? He says, beaming, "Welcome to Divine Project Management." It's at this moment you realize you're basically the festival's intern. But hey, who wouldn't want that on their resume? Worked directly under a god. Saved the timeline. Managed catering. A breeze drifts through the amphitheater, carrying the faint echo of ancient chants. You get the oddest sense of déjà vu, like you've been here before in another life. Maybe you were one of those anonymous musicians carved on the temple walls, strumming a lyre under the stars. Apollo notices your faraway look. You feel it, don't you? The hum of time? The world's been too quiet lately. He's not wrong. Music, for all our streaming and noise, sometimes feels less alive now. Too polished, too algorithmic. Apollo wants to fix that, to remind mortals what music feels like when it shakes the air itself. Still, you can't resist teasing him. So, you're saying you want to save humanity with a concert? He grins. Worked for Live Aid? You laugh, and the sound bounces off the marble in strange, warm ripples. It's infectious. Look, he says, turning serious for a moment. You mortals used to build symphonies out of silence. Now you build silence out of noise. I just want to flip the balance for one night. And somehow, you believe him. A cicada starts its slow, rhythmic drone. Somewhere up the hill, you hear a faint crackle of thunder, the kind that sounds like Zeus clearing his throat. Apollo winces. Okay, we might have a small window of time before Dad catches on. So, step 1, marketing. You glance at the clipboard again. A new subtask has appeared. 5, draft tagline, one night only, music worthy of the gods. You mutter, bit self-absorbed, isn't it? Apollo arches an eyebrow. I'm a sun god. Modesty isn't my brand. You can't help but laugh again. The sun dips lower behind the ridgeline, staining the stone gold and red. For a fleeting moment, you imagine thousands of lights flickering here, mortal and divine, together, swaying to something older than history. But for now, it's just you and Apollo, standing in the ruins of Delphi, sketching the outline of an impossible dream. Far below, the valley hums faintly, like the world's holding its breath. And when Apollo turns to you and says, "Let's make history sing again," you realize this is only the beginning.
You wake to the sound of a harp being tuned, somewhere between heavenly resonance and dental drill. The sunlight is already too enthusiastic, streaming over the marble like it's auditioning for a role in its own biography. You blink blearily, brushing time leaves off your pillow. Apparently, Apollo forgot to mention that sleeping accommodations involve a hillside and a half-tamed peacock. The clipboard from last night hovers above your head, glowing faintly. The words, "Stage construction status, 47%, flicker across its surface. Beneath that, current issues, 3. You sigh. You're supposed to be co-producing a festival with the literal god of music, but right now, you feel more like an unpaid intern at a divine startup that overspent its celestial budget. Apollo, on the other hand, looks radiant. He's already in full performance mode, gesturing at the unfinished amphitheater like he's unveiling the 8th wonder of the world. "We're going to blend ancient stone with modern light," he says. "A bridge between ages. Mortals crave nostalgia and novelty in equal leisure." You glance at the worksite and mumble, "Mortals also crave plumbing." A chorus of hammer strikes echoes as a group of cyclopes installs metal rigging around the top tier of the theater. Each swing of their hammers sparks like a microsun. You can feel the heat from where you stand. Apollo looks thrilled. "They made Zeus's lightning bolts, he says. "Great craftsmanship. Union rules, though. They demand ambrosia breaks every hour." You mutter, "Labor rights, eternal edition." The cyclopes grunt in rhythm, each beat ringing through the marble like the pulse of a drumline. Somewhere, in the chaos, you spot a familiar shape. A rectangular box, black and gleaming under the sun. A mixer console. Actual mortal tech. Someone's bridging the gap between Olympus and Amazon Prime. You walk over, curious. The satyr technician guarding it flicks his tail and squints at you. "Careful, mortal. This baby's running on pure Helios current. One wrong dial and you'll fry the sound of your own heartbeat." You nod politely and back away. The amphitheater itself is mesmerizing. Built centuries ago. Still nearly perfect. Historians still argue whether Delphi's acoustics were a product of divine design or just a lucky convergence of limestone and geometry. But as you stand there, you can feel the vibrations even from a whisper, a living resonance that bounces up through your bones. "Acoustics are my love language," Apollo says beside you. You glance at him. "And I'm guessing ego is your first language." He winks. "Fluently." He starts walking along the upper tier, gesturing with broad theatrical sweeps. "The stage will be here, carved into the hillside. I want a sun motif, obviously, and maybe laser projections of the 9 muses circling the arena during my set." You raise an eyebrow. "Subtle." He laughs, and the sound somehow harmonizes with the wind. You think too small. Mortals invented fireworks. Gods invented auroras. You look at the mess of scaffolding, the glowing cables, the nymphs arguing over sound decibels. One of them waves to you. "Hey, you're the mortal co-producer, right? We need your input on reverb." You approach hesitantly. The nearest muse, Erato, judging by the rose crown, hands you a crystal headset. "Say something," she instructs. Testing. 1, 2. Your voice echoes, splits, and swirls through the air like it's turned into liquid honey. The sound drifts upward, dispersing among the terraces in perfect balance. You can hear your own heartbeat in stereo. Erato grins. "Good. The stones remember the last songs they heard. They respond better when mortals speak with awe." That line sticks with you. Stones that remember. The amphitheater doesn't feel like architecture anymore. It feels like a living instrument. While you're lost in thought, Apollo calls out from across the stage. "You! Come check the lighting rig." You jog over, dodging a few floating tools. The light rig looks suspiciously unstable, suspended from an arch of marble by threads of pure sunlight. "Is that safe?" you ask. "Mostly. Don't stand under it when it's mood-sensitive." You look up. The rig is pulsing gently, reacting to Apollo's tone. When he laughs, it glows brighter. When he frowns, it dims. So, if you get angry mid-set, we're all blind. "Art has consequences," he says sagely. You can't tell if he's joking. A gust of wind rolls through the valley, carrying the scent of rain and electricity. You notice Apollo's jaw tighten slightly. He glances at the sky. "Uh-oh. Dad watching?" "Probably," Apollo says. "Zeus has a thing for dramatic cloud placement. Ignore him." You try. You really do, but the thunderclap that follows sounds suspiciously like an annoyed cough. The workers paused for a moment, unsure whether to keep building. Apollo waves them on. "Don't mind him. He's just jealous no one asked him to headline." The tension eases and work resumes. You wander toward the edge of the amphitheater, where a few demigods are experimenting with digital projections. A holographic sun flares above the horizon, its corona shimmering in the mountain air. Visuals are everything, one of them explains. Mortals need something Instagrammable. Apollo overhears. I invented the sunrise. You think I don't understand visuals? You hide a grin. You also invented arrogance, apparently. Wrong, he says lightly. That was Ares. I just perfected it. By afternoon, the amphitheater looks almost ready. The marble gleams, the stage hums, and even the birds have started chirping in rhythm. You check the clipboard again. Status 92%. Under that, a new line appears. Reminder, acquire mortal permits. Greek Heritage Council. Right, you mutter. Paperwork. Of course, even gods need paperwork. You ask Apollo who's handling that. He blinks. Paper what? You groan. You didn't tell anyone about this, did you? I told the wind spirits. They're very reliable at gossip. Not the same thing. He waves you off. Relax. Bureaucracy dies in the face of divine charm. It doesn't. You've dealt with mortal offices before, and even gods can't bypass a stern clerk with a rubber stamp. Still, you decide to let it slide. For now. The sun tilts westward. The stage crew takes a break, lounging on marbled benches, swapping jokes about past festivals. One of them, an older nymph with ivy in her hair, tells you that she once worked at the Pythian Games, Delphi's ancient version of the Olympics, where music was as important as athletics. Did you know that Apollo's original anthem was played on a lyre made from a tortoise shell? Hermes built it after stealing Apollo's cattle. You blink. That's a strange apology gift. She laughs. Welcome to Greek diplomacy. You file it under quirky, divine trivia. By the time the sky turns lavender, the amphitheater in Peloilm is like a sleeping giant. You can almost hear the future crowd's cheers echoing ahead of time. The clipboard pings one last time. Construction complete. Begin lineup planning tomorrow. You sigh, equal parts awe and exhaustion. Apollo stands beside you, watching the first star appear. See? He says quietly. Told you it would be worth it. You glance at him. It's beautiful, but it's still missing something. He tilts his head. What? You say, purpose. What's the point of this beyond your ego trip? He doesn't answer immediately. When he finally speaks, his voice is softer, almost mortal. Every few thousand years, the universe forgets how to listen. This festival? It's a reminder. And for a moment, under the deepening twilight, you think you understand.
The next morning, you wake up to find Apollo pacing the marble steps with a clipboard of his own, except his is carved from sunlight and possibly judging you. He's muttering something about set lists and interdimensional genre curation. You stretch, trying to remember how you got into this divine internship, and remind yourself, coffee first, cosmic event later. Excellent, Apollo says when he spots you. You're up. We're finalizing the lineup today. Orpheus confirmed overnight. Beyoncé's people are interested, though Hermes might have, he pauses, checking a note, accidentally offered her a Pegasus instead of payment. You blink. That's generous? He waves it off. She thought it was a metaphor. Anyway, we need balance. Mortals and immortals, past and present, the perfect harmony of nostalgia and shock value. You nod, grabbing your own clipboard. The checklist has updated itself again. 1. Confirm opening act. 2. Secure mortal headliner. 3. Approve interdimensional travel logistics. Keep Cerberus off guest list. You groan. Who's handling transport?
Hermes, Apollo says, as if that explains everything, which, in a way, it does. Just as he says it, there's a loud pop and a smell like freshly struck lightning. Hermes appears midair, spinning a pair of glowing wireless earbuds. He's dressed in something that looks suspiciously like a vintage tour jacket that reads Staff, Sunstock 25. "Morning, nerds," he says. "Brought contracts, gift bags, and chaos. Mostly chaos." Apollo sighs. "Hermes, please tell me you didn't barter the Wi-Fi password for extra ambrosia again." "I would never," Hermes says, offended. "I bartered it for a sponsorship deal with Spotify Olympus. They'll live stream the whole event." You nearly choke. Spotify Olympus? Yeah, it's their Divine Tier subscription. Unlimited hymns, ad-free prophecy playlist, and algorithmic worship recommendations. Mortals don't have access. Yet. You make a mental note to avoid their marketing department forever. The muses appear soon after, drifting down like glittering ideas. Each one is carrying a different set of glowing scrolls, each scroll labeled with a potential act. Calliope reads dramatically from hers, "The Ballad of Orpheus and the Dead Yet Dancing. Exclusive acoustic set." "Too moody," Apollo mutters. "We open with something bright, maybe a collaboration between Sappho and Dua Lipa." You nearly laugh. "That's not a sentence I ever thought I'd hear." Apollo shrugs. "Timelines are flexible." Hermes grins. "Speaking of flexible, I've got a wild card. Daedalus wants to do an aerial drone show. Says he's reinvented flight safety. Mostly." "Mostly?" You echo. Hermes looks away. "He tested it on a goat. The goat's fine. Mostly." Apollo pinches his bridge of the nose. "Fine. Add him to the pre-show visuals." You jot it down on the clipboard, which immediately glows and engraves the name in gold. You realize the festival schedule is literally writing itself in marble. No pressure. The meeting turns into an unholy mix of creative brainstorming and mythological gossip. The muses argue about whether Orpheus deserves a prime slot after, last time, apparently he spent most of his set playing sad songs about his ex. Hermes suggests including a mortal DJ for relatability, while Apollo insists on pure artistry, untainted by auto-tune. You, trying to keep things practical, ask, "Do we have any mortal acts confirmed yet?" Hermes flips through a glowing iPad. "Let's see. Billie Eilish's team ghosted me. Lizzo's interested if she can bring her flute. And ABBA. Well, they might reform again if Dionysus covers the after-party." You blink. "ABBA's back?" Hermes shrugs. "They're never really left. They're like Hydra. Cut one farewell tour and two more appear." You chuckle. Fair. Amid the banter, Apollo stands at the center, radiant as ever. "This isn't just entertainment," he reminds everyone. "It's resurrection. Every note played here will echo through reality. If we tune this wrong, history rewrites itself." You freeze mid-scribble. "Wait. Rewrites itself?" He gives you a look that says, "You didn't read the fine print, did you?" Apparently, in divine acoustics, resonance isn't just sound, it's causality. Historians still argue whether the Great Fire of Rome started naturally or because Nero's lyre playing disrupted temporal harmonics. You suddenly realize this festival could literally alter time. "Okay," you say carefully, "maybe we don't book anyone who thinks noise-canceling headphones are evil." Hermes grins. "Good luck explaining that to Dionysus." Right on cue, a distant cheer erupts. The god of wine and rhythm has arrived early, half dancing, half floating, surrounded by satyrs with tambourines. His eyes gleam with party energy. "My friends," he bellows, "I hear we're planning a bash to shake the heavens." Apollo groans, "We're planning art, Dionysus. Art." "Art and bash," Dionysus corrects, tossing you a cup of something effervescent and possibly illegal in all known dimensions. You sip. It tastes like liquid confidence and faint regret. "What's your role?" you ask. "I'm handling hospitality," he says proudly. "Wine rivers, ambrosia fountains, and unlimited glitter. Mortals adore glitter." Apollo glares. "No glitter. It gets in the clouds." "You sound like Hera," Dionysus teases. You back away before divine sibling rivalry escalates into weather phenomena. Later, after the meeting dissolves into harp solos and wine-fueled karaoke, you find yourself walking along the half-finished backstage area. Hermes appears beside you again, quieter this time. "Listen," he says, glancing towards the glowing amphitheater. "You know why Apollo's really doing this?" You shake your head. "It's not just about ego or art. He's trying to drown out the prophecy." You stop. "What prophecy?" Hermes kicks a pebble that turns into a comet. "There's an old one, buried deep in Delphi's archives. Says when the god of music falls silent, the world will lose its rhythm. The sun itself will stutter." You frown. "So this festival is his insurance policy?" Hermes nods. "He's trying to prove he's still in tune with existence. But between you and me, the guy's burning out. Playing sunlight for eternity takes a toll." You glance back at the amphitheater, glowing gold against the evening sky. Apollo stands at the center, framed by his own light, watching the stars come out. There's something in his expression that looks almost human. Tired, maybe. Haunted. You think back to the prophecy and the weight of divine perfection. Suddenly, the festival feels less like a party and more like a cry for help set to a killer soundtrack. Still, you force a smile. "Then we'd better make sure this festival rocks," you say. Hermes grins. "Now you're getting it." As you both watch the sky deepen into night, you hear the faint strains of Orpheus warming up, each note weaving through the mountain air like silk. For the first time, Delphi hums not just with potential, but with purpose.
By dawn, the mountain hums like a giant amplifier. You wake up under a sky so blue it could crack. The air smells faintly of ozone and divine nerves. Today's goal? Sound check. Simple, right? Except nothing about Sunstock has ever been simple. You're halfway through a breakfast of ambrosia-flavored granola when a thunderbolt lands 5 feet away, sizzling the thyme bushes. You drop your spoon. Apollo sighs without looking up from his tuning app. Yes, he has one, custom-coded for celestial frequencies. "Ignore that," he mutters. "Just Zeus being passive-aggressive." "Passive," you echo. "That was an act of war." He smirks. "If it was war, you'd already be vaporized. Come on, we've got frequencies to align." You follow him down toward the amphitheater, now alive with frantic last-minute setup. The Cyclopes are tightening lightning-resistant cables. Satyrs are running around with clipboards, and someone's arguing about decibel limits with a sphinx. Apparently, she's volunteering as head of security because riddles build character. You glance at the clipboard hovering beside you. It's gained a new checklist. 1. Calibrate acoustic resonance. Avoid splitting dimensions. 2. Sync mortal instruments to divine key. 3. Prevent spontaneous combustion during guitar solos. No pressure. The stage looks glorious, though. Giant bronze panels reflect the sunlight in liquid ripples, forming an enormous sunburst design behind the main platform. Microphones hover mid-air, pulsing faintly with contained lightning. A banner across the front reads, "Sunstock, Sound that shaped the stars. Subtle, you mutter. Apollo beams. Marketing genius, right? The muses are already warming up, each one humming a different tone. The combined resonance vibrates the ground beneath your feet. You feel it not just in your ears, but in your bones, your teeth, the air itself. The amphitheater responds, the marble beginning to shimmer faintly. Perfect, Apollo says. Now we just need to integrate mortal tech. You gestured toward the rows of glowing amplifiers set up by mortal engineers. Already done. I double-checked all the voltage. There's a pop and a smell like burnt cinnamon. One of the amps explodes into sparks. Or not, you sigh. Apollo kneels beside the smoldering wreckage. Mortals and electricity, he murmurs, still treating it like fire, never remembering it's alive. He touches the wreckage and light ripples outward. The amp repairs itself in seconds, gleaming good as new. Teach me that trick, you mutter. He grins. Be immortal. Helps with warranty issues. The crew resumes setup, cautiously this time. You glance skyward. Zeus's clouds are massing on the horizon again. The wind smells metallic. Think he'll interfere? You ask quietly. Apollo straightens, lips tight. He wouldn't dare. But you can tell he's not sure. While Apollo calibrates frequencies, you head backstage where Hermes is organizing a mess of mortal gear. He's got laptops, mixers, and what looks like a divine version of Spotify's control center, a glowing sphere filled with miniature sound waves. Please tell me that doesn't involve time travel, you say. Define involve. You pinch the bridge of your nose. We just need sound checks, not space-time DJing. He tosses you a glowing set of noise-canceling headphones. Relax. These sync mortal frequencies to divine resonance. Just don't cross the streams. Why not? Because the last time someone did, Atlantis sank. Anyway, want to test them? You hesitate, then put them on. The world sharpens instantly. The chirp of cicadas sounds symphonic. The wind hums in key with your pulse. You swear you can hear the Earth's heartbeat under your feet. Whoa, you breathe. This is... A crack of thunder interrupts you, followed by a booming voice across the mountains. Apollo! Everyone freezes. Apollo looks up, squinting at the clouds. Oh, for the love of Olympus, what now? The sky splits open, and a giant, bearded face peers through the storm. Zeus himself, the original grumpy patriarch of the cosmos. His voice rattles the stones. What is this nonsense? Concert permits? Mortal technology? Apollo cups his hands to his mouth. Public outreach! Music therapy! Zeus scowls. You're using lightning without authorization. It's solar-powered, Apollo yells back. Zeus eyes the stage suspiciously. Those are my clouds being used for smoke effects. Technically borrowed. The exchange feels like the universe's weirdest HOA argument. Finally, Zeus huffs. Fine, but if any mortal gets turned into a goat, I'm shutting it down. And just like that, the sky closes. The crowd exhales collectively. Hermes claps. See? Green light from upper management. You can't tell if you're relieved or deeply alarmed. Probably both. Apollo brushes imaginary dust from his tunic. Good. Back to art. You help him run through the next sound test. As the instruments align, lyres, harps, guitars, even a synthesizer, the amphitheater transforms. Every note leaves a visible ripple in the air, bending light. You realize you're seeing sound, literally. Divine acoustics, Apollo says softly, when music and light become one. You test a simple drum beat. The air flares gold, pulsing like a heartbeat. For a moment, you feel the whole mountain breathe. But then the low rumble returns. Not thunder this time. Something deeper. Apollo? Is the mountain supposed to move? He frowns. No. Why? Because the marble under your feet is trembling. Cracks spiderweb across the stage, and from them faint golden light seeps upward. Hermes whistles. Oh, great. We've woken the resonant strata. The what now? Ancient harmonic layer, built into the bedrock by the first oracles. You hit the right frequency, and it sings back. Is that bad? Only if it decides to harmonize too much. Then, well, you get earthquakes. You stare at the glowing fissures. Fantastic. Apollo kneels, pressing his palm to the ground. The tremor fades, though not completely. He looks uneasy. We're fine. Probably. Probably is doing a lot of work there. He laughs. A little forced. You wanted authenticity. Not tectonic authenticity. The tremor subsides at last, leaving faint trails of light etched into the marble, new patterns resembling musical notes. Apollo studies them. It's reacting to us, to the idea of the festival. Maybe it approves. Or maybe it's warning you. Historians still argue whether ancient temples were built atop ley lines for divine resonance or just convenient geography. Standing here, you start to wonder if they were both right. By sunset, the technical tests are complete. The amphitheater glows like a miniature sun, humming with latent energy. Everything looks perfect. Too perfect. As you pack up cables, Hermes leans over your shoulder. You know, if this goes sideways, we could end up in a parallel timeline where disco never died. You snort. That's your worst-case scenario? He winks. Best case, depending on your taste. You glance at Apollo, who's gazing westward, silhouetted against the dying light. There's a stillness about him, an intensity that's half divine focus, half exhaustion. You remember what Hermes said about the prophecy, the god of music falling silent. Big day tomorrow, you say. Apollo nods slowly. Biggest in millennia. The last sunlight spills across the amphitheater, and for a heartbeat, everything feels in tune. Gods, mortals, marble, and melody. But beneath the beauty, you swear you hear something else. A faint discord, like the universe humming off key. You wake up to screaming. Not mortal screaming, nymph screaming, which is somehow worse because it's melodious. You sit up, heart pounding, surrounded by chaos. Backstage looks like a fever dream of glitter, cables, and divine egos. The festival is set to open in 24 hours, and everything's already imploding. Aphrodite storms past you, draped in silk and fury. Who approved this lighting? She demands, waving a manicured hand at the stage. Pink gels, not coral. I said rose dawn, not cheap mortal nightclub. Apollo, holding a clipboard and looking like he hasn't slept since the Bronze Age, sighs. Aphrodite, they're literally the color of sunrise. They're salmon, she snaps. Do I look like a salmon? Hermes, passing by with a headset, mutters, depends on the lighting. You choke on a laugh and instantly regret it when Aphrodite turns her laser glare toward you. You, she says, mortal planner, fix this or my brand is ruined. You fumble with your clipboard. I'll, find more flattering gels? Make them shimmer like heartbreak, she says, then vanishes in a cloud of rose-scented indignation. You turn to Apollo. Do you ever regret immortality? Constantly, he mutters. Behind the stage, Dionysus is holding what appears to be an emergency staff meeting, but it looks more like a rave. There's bass thumping, confetti raining from nowhere, and a herd of maenads chanting something about brand synergy. You make your way over, dodging a flying wine goblet. What's happening? Dionysus beams, half drunk on his own enthusiasm. Catering inspection! The guests will want to feel the menu. You glance at the spread. Gold-plated grapes, liquid ambrosia fountains, and wait, is that a live unicorn fondue fountain? Pretty sure this violates several laws of physics, you murmur. He grins. Physics is just another mood, darling. You scribble, reassess catering liability on your clipboard and try not to think about the unicorn's haunting expression. Just then, a mortal event coordinator, one of the few brave humans on site, rushes up, panic in her eyes. "We've got a problem with the mortal headliners," she says. "The travel portals Hermes set up, they're spitting people out in random centuries." You blink. "Random centuries?" She nods. "Last I checked, Beyoncé landed in the Hellenistic period and half the tech crew's stuck in the 1970s. You groan. At least the 70s had good sound engineers. Apollo appears beside you, looking dangerously calm, the kind of calm that precedes a solar flare. "Hermes," he shouts. The messenger god zips in midair, chewing ambrosia gum. "Yeah, boss." "Fix the portals. Relax. Time's more flexible than you think. I just have to realign the quantum chorus." You rub your temples. That's not a phrase that inspires confidence. He disappears in a flash of static, leaving behind the faint smell of ozone and corporator responsibility. Meanwhile, the muses have started bickering about set order. Erato insists she should open because love ballads warm the soul, while Melipomene argues tragedy sells better. Cleo, the historian among them, mutters that none of this will matter because posterity never spells our names right anyway. You stand in the middle of it all, overwhelmed, clutching your clipboard like a shield. "Is this normal for divine productions?" you ask Apollo. He exhales. "This is normal." A soft hum rises from the amphitheater. The stage is warming up again, light rippling across its surface. For a fleeting moment, everything sinks. The instruments, the wind, even the chaos. Then someone plugs in a mortal amp, and every hair on your body stands up. A blinding flash, a crack like the birth of thunder, and suddenly the main stage's solar rig shorts out. Smoke curls upward in golden spirals. "Who did that?" Apollo roars. From behind a stack of speakers, a sheepish demigod raises his hand. "I thought the extension cord was symbolic." Hermes reappears just in time to smirk. "This is why mortals shouldn't touch divine power strips." You sigh. "Okay, we need a plan. We fix the lights, restabilize the timeline portals, and maybe find someone to mediate between Aphrodite and the catering staff before she declares war on dairy." "War on dairy?" Dionysus repeats, horrified. "Not on my watch." You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Probably both. Hours pass in a blur. The sun creeps higher, the air thick with stress and immortality. Somehow you manage to coordinate enough repairs that the stage flickers back to life. The marble hums again, soft and eager. "Good work," Apollo says, offering a tired half-smile. "Maybe you are cut out for this." You grin faintly. "Please tell me that's divine approval or not foreshadowing." He chuckles. "A bit of both." As the evening sets in, rehearsals finally begin. Orpheus takes the stage first, dressed in timeless black, lyre in hand. His voice drifts through the valley like smoke, aching, perfect. Even the crickets fall silent to listen. You can feel every note pulling at your chest, wrapping around something you didn't know was there. When he finishes, the amphitheater holds its breath. Then Dionysus bursts into applause, shouting, "You're hired for my next wedding!" Orpheus bows, eyes glimmering. "If your brides stop running, I'll consider it." You stifle a laugh. The tension eases briefly. But as the rehearsal rolls on, the backstage energy grows stranger. The muses whisper nervously. The marble under your feet feels hot, like the ground itself is restless. You glance toward Apollo, who's watching the horizon, his jaw tight. "Something's off," you say. He nods slightly. "The frequencies are shifting. Someone's meddling." You scan the crowd. Hermes is juggling microphones, Dionysus is flirting with the catering spirit, Aphrodite is live-streaming herself under improved lighting. No obvious culprits. Then you notice it. The sky. The sun's light is pulsing slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if flickering. Apollo?" You follow his gaze. His golden eyes narrow. "No, no, 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 not now." "What's happening?" He clenches his fists. "Zeus must have tethered a storm too close. It's throwing off my rhythm." If I lose sync, the light grid collapses. Lightning cracks in the distance, perfectly timed with his words. The amphitheater trembles. Can you fix it? You ask. He takes a deep breath. I'll try, but if I push too hard, I could... Well, let's say the last time this happened, half of Atlantis got overcooked. You step closer, lowering your voice. Then let me handle logistics. You focus on balance. He hesitates, then nods. All right, mortal. Don't let it all burn. You sprint backstage, shouting orders, disconnecting amps, calming nymphs, rerouting power from the solar rig. The air buzzes, thick with electricity and adrenaline. For a heartbeat, everything freezes. The wind, the sound, even the birds. Then, like a sigh, the tremor fades. The sky steadies. The sun glows normally again. You look back. Apollo stands center stage, hands raised, surrounded by a corona of light. His expression is calm now, though you can see exhaustion shadowing his features. That was dangerously close to divine burnout, Hermes says, landing beside you. You glance at Apollo. How long can he keep that up? Hermes shrugs. Depends. Even the sun can't shine forever. As night falls over Delphi, the stage lights up one last time. Everything looks perfect again. Too perfect, like a masterpiece on the edge of cracking. And as you finally sit down, bones aching, clipboard forgotten, you realize something chilling. Tomorrow isn't just the festival. It's Judgment Day. For music, for gods, and maybe for the world itself.
You don't remember falling asleep. One moment, you're sitting in the backstage grass, watching the amphitheater glow under its divine lighting grid. The next, Hermes is shaking you awake with a thermos of what smells like caffeinated ambrosia. It's showtime, mortal, he says, grinning. Hope you stretched your sanity. You rub your eyes. The sun's barely up, but already the valley hums with sound checks, chatter, and divine chaos. It's opening day. The sky above Delphi gleams like a disco ball, literally. Apollo installed a reflective aurora system to capture the vibe of modern festivals. It looks like the Northern Lights having a midlife crisis. You stumble toward the stage, clipboard in hand, and get your first look at the crowd. Thousands, no, tens of thousands have gathered. Mortals, demigods, satyrs, dryads, celestial beings of questionable legality. You spot a few mortal historians in the front row, taking frantic notes as if documenting a fever dream. Estimated attendance, you ask Hermes. He peers at a divine tablet. Current count, 43,000 corporeal beings plus an unknown number of spirits who refused to RSVP. Of course they did, you sigh. The bass rumbles through the mountain. Dionysus's pre-show playlist. He's got Daft Punk, ABBA, and a remix of an ancient Greek flute solo that sounds suspiciously like early EDM. Somewhere, a satyr crowd surfs before the show has even started. Aphrodite arrives next, glowing like a sunrise filtered through a beauty app. Darling, she says, looping her arm through yours, you've done a marvelous job. Just remember, no unflattering camera angles during my entrance. You blink. There are camera angles? Of course. Hermes hired a team of Cyclops to run the live stream. You glance backstage and spot them, massive, one-eyed creatures fiddling delicately with cameras the size of scooters. One waves politely when he catches your stare. Don't worry, she whispers conspiratorially. They only weep during emotional moments. It fogs the lenses a little, but it's good for drama. Before you can respond, a deafening cheer rises from the amphitheater. Apollo steps onto the stage, bathed in sunlight. His lyre gleams like molten gold, and his smile could outshine a galaxy. Friends, mortals, immortals, he says, voice carrying effortlessly. Welcome to the first and possibly last Mount Parnassus Music Festival. The crowd roars. Fireworks bloom overhead, painting the sky in shapes of constellations. You recognize Orion, Cassiopeia, and something that looks alarmingly like a QR code. Apollo raises his hand.
We gather here across time and space, not just for music, but for harmony. Harmony and possible disaster, you mutter. Hermes grins. Same thing, really. The first act begins, Orpheus. He steps forward, calm and solemn, his lyre strings glowing faintly. When he plays, the world stops breathing. The melody is haunting, so pure it makes your bones ache. Even Aphrodite looks misty-eyed. Halfway through, the historians in the front row break into applause, until one of them faints. Overexposure to mythic resonance, Hermes says, checking his notes, happens every time. After Orpheus, the lineup spirals into pure spectacle. The muses perform an intricate choral mashup blending Gregorian chants with pop harmonies. Then, Beyoncé takes the stage, fresh from her misdirected trip through the Hellenistic period. Her set includes a remix of Halo, featuring actual halos spinning in sync above the crowd. You feel dizzy watching it. This shouldn't exist, and yet, somehow, it's perfect. For a moment, you forget about timelines and celestial politics. The crowd sways, the mountain hums, and the universe feels tuned. Then, like an uninvited thought, the wind changes. A low vibration rolls through the valley, unsettling. The sky darkens, not with clouds, but with presence. Hermes notices it first. Uh-oh. What's wrong? He gestures upward. Zeus RSVP'd. A thunderclap splits the air, and from above descends a figure of pure authority. Robes of stormlight, beard of static, expression of cosmic irritation. The crowd gasps. Even Apollo freezes. "Father," Apollo says tightly, lowering his lyre, "you're early. I felt interference. You're drawing too much celestial current." "It's a festival," Apollo says, "a celebration of divine creativity." Zeus's eyes narrow. Creativity is one thing, but this, he gestures at the glowing aurora, the lightning-shaped speakers, the mortal dancers, this is chaotic. "Isn't chaos part of creation?" you blurt, before realizing you've spoken out loud. Every god in the vicinity turns to look at you. You gulp. Sorry, mortal instinct." To your surprise, Zeus studies you for a long moment, then chuckles. "You remind me of Prometheus, reckless, slightly singed." "Thanks," you say weakly. Hermes leans over and whispers, "That's high praise. He only electrocuted Prometheus once." Apollo straightens. "Father, I promise, the festival is under control." Zeus frowns but relents. "Very well, but if lightning strikes twice tonight, it will not be metaphorical." With that, he vanishes, leaving behind a faint ozone smell and several terrified sound technicians. The show resumes, hesitant at first, then unstoppable. The night deepens, each performance more surreal than the last. You catch moments like dreams, Dionysus leading a mass sing-along of Sweet Caroline with divine trumpets, Aphrodite performing a slow, hypnotic ballad that causes spontaneous dating among audience members, a mortal DJ spinning beats so hard that even the statues start tapping their marble feet. You feel dizzy watching it. This shouldn't exist, and yet, somehow, it's perfect. For a moment, you forget about timelines and celestial politics. The crowd sways, the mountain hums, and the universe feels tuned. Then, like an uninvited thought, the wind changes. A low vibration rolls through the valley, unsettling. The sky darkens, not with clouds, but with presence. Hermes notices it first. Uh-oh. What's wrong? He gestures upward. Zeus RSVP'd. A thunderclap splits the air, and from above descends a figure of pure authority. Robes of stormlight, beard of static, expression of cosmic irritation. The crowd gasps. Even Apollo freezes. "Father," Apollo says tightly, lowering his lyre, "you're early. I felt interference. You're drawing too much celestial current." It's a festival, Apollo says, a celebration of divine creativity. Zeus's eyes narrow. Creativity is one thing, but this, he gestures at the glowing aurora, the lightning-shaped speakers, the mortal dancers. This is chaotic. Isn't chaos part of creation? You blurt, before realizing you've spoken out loud. Every god in the vicinity turns to look at you. You gulp. Sorry, mortal instinct. To your surprise, Zeus steadies you for a long moment, then chuckles. You remind me of Prometheus, reckless, slightly singed. Thanks, you say weakly. Hermes leans over and whispers, That's high praise. He only electrocuted Prometheus once. Apollo straightens. Father, I promise, the festival is under control. Zeus frowns but relents. Very well, but if lightning strikes twice tonight, it will not be metaphorical. With that, he vanishes, leaving behind a faint ozone smell and several terrified sound technicians. The show resumes, hesitant at first, then unstoppable. The night deepens, each performance more surreal than the last. You catch moments like dreams, Dionysus leading a mass sing-along of Sweet Caroline with divine trumpets, Aphrodite performing a slow, hypnotic ballad that causes spontaneous dating among audience members, a mortal DJ spinning beats so hard that even the statues start tapping their marble feet. You feel dizzy watching it. This shouldn't exist, and yet somehow it's perfect. For a moment, you forget about timelines and celestial politics. The crowd sways, the mountain hums, and the universe feels tuned. Then, like an uninvited thought, the wind changes. A low vibration rolls through the valley, unsettling. The sky darkens, not with clouds, but with presence. Hermes notices it first. Uh-oh. What's wrong? He gestures upward. Zeus RSVP'd. A thunderclap splits the air, and from above descends a figure of pure authority. Robes of stormlight, beard of static, expression of cosmic irritation. The crowd gasps. Even Apollo freezes. Father, Apollo says tightly, lowering his lyre, you're early. I've felt interference. You're drawing too much celestial current. It's a festival, Apollo says, a celebration of divine creativity. Zeus's eyes narrow. Creativity is one thing, but this,
The morning after feels like the hangover of creation itself. You wake up surrounded by confetti that refuses to obey gravity, drifting lazily in circles. Your clothes smell faintly of ozone and honey, and somewhere, a satyr is still asleep inside a speaker subwoofer. You drag yourself upright and blink against the dawn. The amphitheater is a battlefield of beauty and exhaustion. Broken lyres, glowing footprints, and faint scorch marks where Apollo nearly overclocked the sun. Hermes saunters by with sunglasses and 2 cups of something that looks like liquid sunlight. Morning, mortal coordinator. You survived the world's first interdimensional mosh pit. Barely, you croak, accepting the drink. It tastes like citrus, coffee, and redemption. How's Apollo? Hermes grimaces. He's in recovery mode. Burned through about 6% of his stellar output last night. He'll recharge, but he's not exactly taking it well. You glance toward Apollo's tent, a golden structure pulsing faintly, as if alive. He's resting? Hermes laughs. Resting, please. He's composing. You sigh. Of course he is. As you head toward the tent, the ground still hums with residual music, like faint whispers of what happened last night. It's eerie and mesmerizing. Each step seems to trigger echoes of last night's melody. Inside, Apollo sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scrolls, scribbled notes, and what might be a glowing MacBook prototype. His hair, once a cascade of sunlight, now hangs dull and tangled. "Morning," you say gently. He looks up,
eyes weary but sharp. Did we save them? The crowd? Yeah, no casualties, just some spontaneous existential awakenings and one historian who thinks he's a satyr now. A flicker of amusement crosses his face. Good. At least the art moved someone. You sit beside him. You scared everyone last night, you know. He stares at his hands, including myself. For a moment, the god of music looks painfully human. You realize what's really eating him. It's not exhaustion, it's doubt. I thought, he says quietly, that I could bridge the gap, make mortals and gods understand each other through sound, but maybe I've forgotten what they actually hear. You pick up one of his scattered notes, a half-written melody annotated with ancient runes and modern chord progressions. This is brilliant, you say, but maybe it doesn't need to be perfect. He gives you a small, rueful smile. You sound like my mother. Let me guess, Leto told you to stop overachieving? She said, you can't outshine the dawn by staring at your own light. You chuckle. Moms always know. For a long moment, neither of you speak. The soft wind filters through the tent, carrying faint strains of music from the valley. Workers are rebuilding the stage. Nymphs are sweeping glitter with tiny hurricanes, and Dionysus's crew is already setting up for an after party. You know, you say, in mortal terms, this was a hit. People are already calling it the concert of eternity. Apollo's eyes flicker with distant amusement. Eternity's a long time to trend. Outside, Hermes bursts in uninvited, tossing his clipboard. Okay, people, damage report time. Half the amplifiers are fried, Zeus wants a debrief, and someone accidentally scheduled Medusa for the meet and greet. Medusa? You exclaim, as in the... Yep, Hermes says. We might need a no eye contact clause. Apollo groans. Can't I have one day off? Hermes grins. Not when the cosmos is your PR department. The rest of the morning spirals into divine damage control. Zeus's thundercloud representative appears for a performance review, asking if Apollo has filed the proper cosmic resonance paperwork. Aphrodite demands to turn the crisis into a fragrance campaign. Eclipse, the scent of almost dying beautifully. Meanwhile, Dionysus is still DJing somewhere, oblivious to the existential meltdown brewing. You do your best to coordinate, but Apollo grows quieter as the day drags on. When you finally get a moment alone, he's sitting by the edge of the cliff, overlooking the valley, staring at the horizon. You ever get tired of the noise? He asks softly. All the time, I admit. But then someone hums a song and it feels worth it again. He nods slowly. Once, the sound of the lyre ruled hearts. Now the world hums with machines. Sometimes I wonder if anyone still hears the divine behind the static. You glance at him, choosing your words carefully. Maybe that's why you did this festival. To remind them. To remind yourself. He doesn't answer, but his expression softens. You mortals, always reaching for gods, even when you shouldn't. And you gods keep looking down, hoping we'll sing the right note back. He chuckles quietly. Historians still argue whether mortals made music to imitate gods or to rebel against them. You grin. Either way, it worked. For a while, you both sit in silence, listening to the faint hum of wind and leftover electricity. The air smells of pine, ash, and spilled ambrosia. Then faintly, you hear it, a rhythm, pulsing under the mountain. The remnants of Apollo's song. You can feel it trying to restart itself, like an unfinished heartbeat. He frowns.
It's still resonating. The frequencies didn't fade. Is that bad? He hesitates. If it lingers too long, it might destabilize things. Things like what? Reality. Right. No big deal. Just casual cosmic unraveling. He sighs. Don't panic. It'll fade eventually. Probably. Probably? Before you can press further, Hermes rushes in again. Apollo, we've got a muse problem. He stiffens. What kind of problem? They've, gone on strike. Strike? You blink. Hermes nods. They're demanding better working conditions. Something about too much inspiration, not enough appreciation. They've locked themselves in the green room and are refusing to sing until further notice. Apollo pinches the bridge of his nose. Of course they have. You sigh. Guess we're improvising again. He glances at you, an admiration in his tired eyes. You seem to thrive on improvisation. Not thrive, survive. He smiles faintly. Close enough. As Hermes vanishes in a trail of sparkles, you and Apollo exchange a look, half exasperation, half grim amusement. Well, you say, standing, let's go talk to the muses before they unionize the rest of Olympus. Lead the way, Apollo says, rising beside you. Maybe music can wait a little longer, but diplomacy never does. You laugh softly, and people think mortal event planning is stressful. Mortals don't have to deal with divine egos, he says dryly. Clearly, you've never booked a rock band. As you walk together toward the green room, the last light of the sun drifts low over Delphi, casting everything in golden melancholy. The air feels heavy with what's left unsung. You glance at Apollo one last time before the chaos resumes. His expression is distant, but there's a glimmer beneath it, a spark trying to reignite. You just hope it doesn't burn the world again.
You push open the door to the green room and are immediately hit by the scent of sandalwood, roses, and passive-aggressive silence. The muses sit in a semicircle, arms crossed, each radiating a distinct flavor of divine annoyance. Calliope, eldest and most eloquent, looks up as you enter. Before you say anything, she begins, "This is not a tantrum. It's a creative intervention." You raise your hands in surrender. Understood. Just here to listen. Apollo, behind you, mutters, "Oh, joy." Arado flips her golden hair. "We are overworked, under-celebrated, and creatively stifled. We provide inspiration, not constant content." Hermes materializes midair, notebook in hand. "So, more benefits? Dental? Eternal validation?" Thalia, the muse of comedy, groans. "He's making jokes again." You take a careful step forward. "All right, let's talk solutions. What do you want?" Cleo, the historian muse, adjusts her laurel wreath and says, "Recognition, fair scheduling, and perhaps fewer impromptu divine meltdowns mid-performance." She gives Apollo a pointed look. Apollo sighs. "It wasn't a meltdown. It was interpretive transcendence." Melpomene claps slowly. "Oh yes, very transcendent. Nothing says art like plunging the crowd into cosmic despair." You try not to laugh. "So, if I understand correctly, you want less pressure, more credit, and a chance to breathe creatively?" Calliope nods. "Exactly. We've been inspiring since the dawn of civilization. We deserve a sabbatical." Hermes raises an eyebrow. "You had a sabbatical during the Renaissance." Terpsichore huffs. "We were researching." You step in quickly. "Okay, how about this? We host an open mic session. Give everyone, immortals, mortals, whoever, a chance to perform. You supervise, you curate, and you get to set the tone." The muses exchange glances. Polyhymnia, muse of sacred hymns, whispers, "A mortal with a good idea? That's new." "Rare, but not impossible," Calliope says with a small smile. "And what would Apollo do during this experiment?" You glance back at him. He rests, maybe even listens for once. He crosses his arms, but doesn't argue. "Fine, I'll, observe." Hermes grins. "I'll handle logistics. Nothing says morale boost like chaos with a microphone." The muses agree, tentatively. It's not a perfect piece, but it's enough. By sunset, the amphitheater has transformed again. The stage is stripped bare of glamour and gold. Instead, a simple lyre sigil glows faintly at its center. No divine effects, no fireworks, just sound and story. You stand backstage, headset crooked, clipboard somehow still intact. Hermes flits around checking cables, muttering, "If this turns into another reality rift, I'm blaming HR." The first performer steps up, a mortal archaeologist, trembling, clutching a tambourine. He clears his throat. This one's called Ballad of the Lost Pottery Shard. It's off-key, awkward, and oddly touching. The crowd listens, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You glance at Apollo. He's smiling softly, the first genuine smile you've seen in days. Next comes a dryad with a flute carved from her own falling branch. The sound is eerie and beautiful, the kind that makes time slow. The audience sways gently, hypnotized. Then a satire poet performs slam verses about divine bureaucracy. Even Melpomene cracks a grin. For a while, it works. The tension lifts. The festival becomes something real again. Not spectacle, not cosmic theater, but raw, shared expression. Then the wind changes. It starts as a low hum, barely noticeable, like a speaker feedback loop. You look up at Apollo, who's frowning. "Do you feel that?" he whispers. The muses sense it too. Their eyes widen. Polyhymnia drops her hymn book. "That's not us." The sound grows, layered, discordant. The mountain itself seems to vibrate. The unfinished song from Apollo's burnout is stirring again, resonating through the earth like something trying to wake up. "Shut it down," Hermes says, panicked. "Cut the sound." You rest to the control panel, flipping switches, but nothing responds. The microphones crackle with static. The amphitheater trembles. Then a voice booms. Not from the stage, not from the sky, but from within the music itself. "You shouldn't have left it unfinished." Everyone freezes. The voice is cold, harmonic, and ancient. You glance at Apollo. His face drains of color. "What is that?" you ask. He swallows hard. "An echo. My echo." The crowd stirs uneasily. Lights flicker, sound warps, and suddenly spectral figures flicker into view. Holograms made of melody. Past performances replay themselves, Apollo's song looping endlessly, merging with the open mic sounds. It's like time itself is remixing. "Turn it off," you shout, but Hermes is already trying. Sparks fly. Historians still argue whether the ancients truly believed in the music of the spheres, a cosmic harmony binding all things. I'm starting to think it wasn't a metaphor. The echoes multiply. Orpheus's lyre melody clashes with the archaeologist's tambourine. Aphrodite's ballad tangles with the dryad's flute. The sounds overlap, distort, collapse into chaos. The muses cry out, covering their ears. "It's feeding on unfinished inspiration," Cleo shouts. Apollo steps forward. "It's my fault. I poured too much into the final chord. It fractured across time." "Can you stop it?" you ask. He hesitates. "Maybe, but it'll take everything." You shake your head. "No, not again. We fix this together." He meets your eyes, tired, luminous. "You're immortal. You can't survive the frequency." You grin weakly. "I survived your festival planning?" He actually laughs, faintly, and raises his hands. "All right, follow my lead." The muses circle him, harmonizing softly. The air thrums with energy, like a heartbeat sinking. You stand at the console, rerouting sound, amplifying the stabilizing tone. For a moment, the chaos subsides. The echoes flicker, fading, but one remains, a shimmering afterimage of Apollo himself strumming that impossible chord, repeating endlessly. He looks at it, and for the first time, you see fear in his eyes. If I erase it, I erase a part of me. Then don't erase it. Rewrite it. He stares at you, then nods. Together. He lifts his lyre, you adjust the levels. The muses hum the root note, a perfect minor third, vibrating through the mountain. Slowly, Apollo begins to play. Not the old song, but something new. Softer. Human. Imperfect. The echoes falter. The spectral figures dissolve. The sound fades to silence. When it's done, the crowd bursts into cautious applause, unsure whether to cheer or pray. The mountain stills. Time feels lighter. Hermes exhales. Well, that was terrifying. Anyone else feel like we just rebooted reality? Ballier raises her hand. Can we do it again? I have jokes. Apollo laughs quietly. The sound fragile but real. No repeats. Only refrains. You lean on the console, heart still pounding. So, crisis averted. For now, but we're definitely filing an insurance claim with fate herself. The muses disperse, muttering about creative exhaustion. The crowd slowly trickles away, dazed but inspired. The night settles in, peaceful, for once. You look at Apollo. He's watching the horizon again, but this time he seems lighter. You rewrote it, you say. He nods. With help. Maybe that's the lesson. You smile. Even gods need a backup band. He laughs, a sound like sunrise. Somewhere in the valley, the first birds begin to sing. For the first time since the festival began, their song doesn't echo. It just is.
You're halfway through packing the stage gear when the first note bends wrong. A feedback whine, just a sliver of distortion, slides across the amphitheater, sharp enough to raise goosebumps. You pause, look toward Apollo, and realize the air around him has gone glassy again. Please tell me that's not divine feedback, you mutter. Hermes looks up from his clipboard, chewing a piece of celestial gum. Technically, it's temporal resonance, he says. Totally harmless unless it starts harmonizing with itself. The sound does exactly that. A shiver ripples through the sky, like someone plucking the strings of time. The sun flickers, just once, like a skipped frame in a film, and suddenly, every shadow has the wrong shape. The amphitheater trembles. You drop your headset. Everyone, clear the area! But the order comes too late. The sound deepens, thickens, and the light around you folds in on itself. The mountain blurs, and when it resolves, the world isn't quite the same. You're still standing on the stage, but now there are two Apollos. One golden, radiant, newly recentered from the open mic. The other ghost-like, flickering in distorted rhythm, eyes burning with leftover sound. Hermes whistles. Oh, a temporal clone. Those are never covered by warranty. The ghost Apollo turns toward you. His voice is layered, like multiple timelines speaking at once. You thought you could rewrite me. You just multiplied me. Real Apollo clenches his jaw. Ignore him. He's residual energy. You raise an eyebrow. Residual energy that's glaring at us and holding a leer? Historians still argue whether the ancient Greeks truly believed Apollo controlled time as well as music. Some inscriptions from Delphi hint that his hymns could turn back the seasons or freeze the stars mid-motion. Standing here, caught between overlapping realities, you begin to see how those myths might have started. The ghost steps forward, plucking one chord, and time hiccups. You blink, and suddenly you're earlier. The amphitheater is full again. The crowd cheers, the lights blaze. You glance down and see your clipboard in your hand, unscorched, unbroken. Oh no, you whisper. We've looped. The song restarts. Apollo, the real one, tries to strum a counterchord, but the sound collapses into noise. Every note overlaps itself, creating a spiraling, recursive melody that warps reality like a scratched record. Hermes runs past, shouting into his communicator. "We've got a full temporal feedback loop. Repeat, full feedback. Contain all sound sources." You sprint to the control booth, flipping every switch to mute. Nothing happens. The dials spin freely, like the concept of control no longer applies. Then you see the problem. The ghost Apollo isn't the only duplicate. The crowd is multiplying too. Time-lagged versions of the audience overlapping in infinite recursion. One set cheers, another gasps, another stares frozen mid-applause. It's like reality's buffering. You grip the console. Okay, think. How do you unloop a song? Hermes pops into existence beside you, slightly translucent, which is not encouraging. He says, "You finish it, but you finish it exactly the same way it started, perfectly symmetrical. Otherwise, the energy can't resolve." You look at the chaos around you. You want me to recreate the opening act note for note, while the god of music is fighting his evil twin? Pretty much, Hermes shrugs. Welcome to Tech Support Myth Edition. You exhale, crack your knuckles, and start pressing keys. The console hums, flickering between timelines. You pull up the first act, the archaeologist's shaky tambourine track, and replay it. The sound wobbles through the air, rough, human, beautiful. The ghost falters. Its song stutters for half a beat. Real Apollo seizes the moment, strumming a clean harmonic. "Keep going," he shouts. You mix in the dryad's flute next, then the satyr's slam poetry. The layered sounds weave into a messy, mortal counterpoint to divine perfection. Every imperfection stabilizes the timeline a little more, anchoring the world in realness. But the ghost isn't done. It unleashes a final, blinding note, a crescendo of everything that ever was or could have been. The amphitheater shatters into prisms of sound, and you're thrown backward through time. When you open your eyes, you're standing in ancient Delphi. No lights, no speakers, just marble, dust, and a crowd of priests staring at you like you're a glitch in the oracle feed. You manage. "Hi. Anyone here seen Apollo?" One priest bows. "The god descends only with music." Perfect. You take the tambourine from your pocket, still somehow intact, and start tapping a rhythm, the same beat from the first performance. The air hums faintly, and the horizon ripples. A flash of sunlight, and Apollo appears, not divine or ghostly, but balanced, whole. "You brought me back," he says softly. "I think you brought yourself back. I just kept time." He looks around. You realized we're several millennia off schedule. "Yeah." I glance at the confused priests. "We might have invented EDM a bit early." He laughs, the sound echoing across the temple columns. The laughter stabilizes the air, pulling color and shape back into alignment. The ground splits slightly under your feet, not destructively, just enough to reveal layers of shimmering timeline beneath. You see glimpses, the festival, the chaos, the laughter, all looping, all waiting to resolve. Apollo steps beside you. We can't stop the loops completely. They're part of the song now. So what do we do? He gestures to the horizon, where the sun hangs frozen halfway between dawn and dusk. We play the coda. Together you lift your instruments, his lyre, your trembling tambourine, and start to play. The rhythm builds, steady and warm, echoing across centuries. Every beat collapses a loop, every note seals a rift. Hermes' voice echoes faintly through time. "You're doing it! Keep that tempo!" The sun begins to move again. The marble fades back into modern scaffolding. The amphitheater reforms around you. The crowd reappears, one unified, living moment. The air smells like ozone and burnt popcorn. The ghost Apollo stands across the stage, translucent, smiling faintly. "You finished it." Real Apollo lowers his lyre. "No," he says, "we began it right." The ghost nods once, then dissolves into light, leaving behind only a faint chord lingering in the air. You listen. It's the same note that started everything. The muses reappear, disoriented but intact. Calliope stares at the restabilized timeline. That was the most chaotic improvisation in history. Cleo mutters. Historians still argue whether it even happened. You collapse into a chair, exhausted. If time asks, tell her to never call me again. Apollo walks to the edge of the stage, gazing at the night sky. You know, he says softly, for a mortal, you play a pretty decent coon. Yeah, you say, but next time, let's stick to karaoke. He laughs, and somewhere, the stars flicker in approval. Above the mountain, the constellations realign, each note of the completed song etched across the cosmos. And just before everything fades to quiet, you swear you hear that tambourine echo, one last time, perfectly in sync with the universe's heartbeat.
You stand in the ruins of the amphitheater, if ruins is even the right word for something that still hums faintly with divine reverb. The dawnlight curls over the marvel, tracing slow gold veins through the cracks, and the silence feels impossibly full, like the air itself is still catching its breath after everything it's just sung. Apollo is sitting on the stage, cross-legged, tuning his lyre with the absent focus of someone who's both exhausted and at peace. The strings shimmer with sunlight. You almost hate to disturb him, but he notices you anyway. You hear it too, don't you? He says quietly. You tilt your head. Hear what? He smiles. The afternote. It's what remains when a song finally decides it's done. You listen harder. There's nothing obvious. No echo, no wind. But then you catch it. A faint vibration beneath the mountain's heartbeat. A tone that's not really sound, but memory. It's beautiful, and it's fading. I thought the festival was over, you say. It is, he answers, plucking one last string. That's why it's perfect. Hermes appears beside you, chewing a fig like he hasn't just been through a temporal implosion. Congratulations, both of you. You just pulled a full Chronos inversion without destroying causality. That's like top-tier mythic engineering. You give him a tired thumbs up. Do we get a certificate? Only if you promise not to host any more divine festivals. You laugh. It comes out half delirious, half relieved. The kind of laugh that means you survived. The muses wander through the wreckage, collecting sheet music that never physically existed. Erato hums a soft lullaby, while Thalia tests the microphone that shouldn't be working, but somehow is. When she hears her own echo, she grins. Guess Inspiration's union rules are flexible. For the first time in days, or centuries, depending on how the time math shakes out, everything is calm. Aphrodite strolls in late, hair immaculate, pretending she didn't miss the apocalypse. Did I miss sound check? She asks sweetly. Hermes groans. You missed existence collapsing in on itself. She waves a hand. Same thing. You can't help smiling. This whole mess started as a music festival. And somehow, despite cosmic burnout, divine egos, and a literal fight with time, it kind of worked. Historians still argue whether the Pythian Games, the ancient competitions honoring Apollo, were the first real music festivals. Some say they were sacred rituals. Others insist they were just ancient talent shows with better costumes. You suspect the truth, as always, lives somewhere between reverence and ridiculousness. You look around at the gods, the muses, the mortals cleaning up confetti that keeps reappearing from alternate timelines, and you think, yeah, this is exactly how legends start, by accident. Apollo rises, brushing marble dust off his robes. So, he says, do you think they'll remember? You shrug. Maybe not exactly. Probably just the good parts. The laughter, the music, the way the stars sounded when they hummed in key. He nods thoughtfully. That's enough. He steps closer, handing you a small golden coin.
the kind used for offerings, but faintly engraved with a single musical note instead of a head. He says, "Keep it. When you need inspiration, play it against your ear. It'll remind you what silence can sing." You take it. It's warm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The others begin to fade, one by one. Hermes first, muttering about paperwork, Aphrodite with a perfectly timed hair flip, the muses dissolving into faint harmonies. Apollo lingers, watching the sun climb higher. You did well, mortal. You learned the oldest truth of all. And what's that, you ask? That every song ends, but every ending hums with the next beginning. He smiles, a tired golden thing, and then he's gone, leaving only the faint echo of a lyre string hanging in the air. You stand there for a long moment, letting the mountain breathe around you. The sky brightens, the cicadas start their morning chorus, and somewhere down the slope, a human crowd begins to stir. Festival-goers returning from dreams they'll never quite explain. You walk towards them slowly, the golden coin heavy in your pocket, the memory of gods already blurring at the edges. Later, when you check your phone, you notice a new playlist on your music app. Parnassus Live, unreleased. You press play, and what comes out isn't a song, exactly. It's the sound of sunlight touching stone, of laughter across centuries, of the universe exhaling. And underneath it all, a single whisper. Thank you for listening. You sit back, eyes half closed, letting the quiet fold around you. The mountain hums like a giant tuning fork, settling into silence. The air slow and heavy, the kind that pulls thought into stillness. The chaos has drained away now, leaving only warmth and the faint shimmer of memory in the cracks of the marble. You breathe in the scent of old pine and faint ozone. The world feels slower, safer, like the story itself is exhaling with you. Every sound that lingers, wind against stone, a bird's call in the distance, feels like a fragment of Apollo's last melody, stretched soft and low across time. You realize that the song was never about spectacle or fame. It was about remembering how to listen, how to sit with a sound until it becomes silence, and how that silence can hum back if you're patient enough. So you let it hum. You let your pulse slow until it matches the mountain's rhythm, steady and unhurried. Somewhere, in a place between dreams and echoes, a voice, warm, amused, half divine, murmurs, "Rest now. You've kept time long enough." And so you do. The festival fades into legend, the music into memory, and the world spins on, perfectly off-key in all the ways that matter. Sleep easy. The gods are quiet tonight.